Hey everybody, it's Taylor of Summerdale Soul here. Thank you so much for joining me in this second part of my 4-part series. We're going to be tearing down the Miata to turn it into the donor for the Exocet. I'm very excited, so let's get started. Now in the last video, I promised you guys a good door struggle. So I basically just sped this up so you can see the whole process. It was disastrous. Please make sure you have somebody in some situations where you need help available. I highly recommend it, or at least something to prop a door on. That helps. Whew! Take that sip, girl. You earned it. You're an idiot, but you earned it.
It's not even warm.
At this point, I'm just trying to clear out everything I can in front of the radiator, just disconnecting hoses, trying to get off the air intake. I'm basically just unplugging everything that'll give me a little more room to the fans. Here I'm just going through the process of removing the air intake. Basically just remove that clamp and kind of gently pry away. You want to be very delicate here. There are a lot of components. Just trying to get some sort of leverage to separate this to easily remove it.
Let's find out.
Time to bust out those label makers. Seriously though, your life will be so much easier if you label everything now as opposed to just playing the guessing game later on when you're trying to complete the kit. And now, a few moments of insanity. Please enjoy.
Oh, I hate this. Okay. This is a good time. We're having a good time.
I want to say that I drained the radiator before this, but honestly, with my track record, I can't say that that's residual coolant with certainty. Also, make sure all of your exposed connectors are out of the way when you have a little spill. I might pay for that later. TBD.
Alright.
I'm really holding this thing like I didn't drain the radiator. Oh my god, I didn't drain the radiator. It's a screw, folks. Just drain the radiator. Since it would seem I have incredible ADD, I decided to remove the cruise control component here. You'll release the metal bulb at the end of this wire from the front of the firewall and pull it through. Once you release the wire, you can start working on the brackets that hold this to the car. And, you know, drop some stuff in the process. But before you go yanking on this thing to remove it, you've got to separate a little hose on the intake manifold. And now it's free.
Now, that should be everything.
If you ain't got no giddy up, then giddy out my way.
Yeah.
At this point, I think I was looking for easy accomplishments, so I'm just going to remove the overflow tank. That was tough. It was a really tough one, guys. I'm glad we have each other. Several hours in, delirium strikes.
Oh yeah, getting good. Woo!
Again, not proud, but looking for easy wins. It was something. 2 bolts on each side and lift. And I mean, if we're working on easy stuff, why stop at the front?
Twist this, don't try and plug it. I'm an idiot. Shocking. No.
You can tell I goofed and removed the bolts before I undid all of this, but just for the sake of clarity, pretend like I didn't do this first. Once again, 4 bolts and lift.
Alright. That's a trunk lid.
And once again, I am sloppily removing the system here. You can either turkey baster or bleed properly. I recommend that if you're trying not to make a mess, but you know, shop rags. It's great. At least I'm wearing gloves this time. Once you have the lines clear, you can remove it from the firewall and pull apart. Here I'm just examining and pulling apart a little connector I found. It gave me a little bit of trouble, but just kind of make sure you have pressure and pull evenly and it should come off. Shout out to my favorite dancing queen, Papa Hair. I trust you've watched every single second of all of my videos, and I can't wait to talk to you in depth about every one. Love you! While he's busy dancing away, I'm working on the fans on the radiator. What you'll do is you'll unscrew these tabs here, and you'll pull the fan directly up once you have enough clearance to release. You'll likely have to attack the bottom two bolts from underneath the car, but be warned. This is the face of spider trauma. So once you're done crying in the corner, and you've cleared off all the bolts, you can lift the fan straight up.
This one.
Now, getting over to the other fan can be tricky. You got a lot of hoses in the way. If you have anything under the car, a lawnmower you gotta push out of the way. Listen, it's homegrown. You gotta do what you gotta do. Now peel yourself off the floor in order to remove the fan. Then wiggle it a little bit and realize that you still have to remove the hose from the top in order to get this thing out. Let's speed this up, shall we? Ugh, finally. The easiest tasks, am I right?
Look at that. Woo! Bandos.
Now listen, everybody has their own way of evaluating. Some people like to dance around and point at things. Respect the process. Wait for it. So much room for activities. So the headlights are tricky, and I should have started this whole video series saying you want to start with them in a pop-up position because, you know, pop-ups, but also because it's significantly easier than having to, you know, figure out how to get them back up without any sort of circuitry plugged in. What you'll do to get this far is undo the bolts that hold this to the car. You're going to want to have a matching set of either like an open wrench and a ratchet so you can make sure the bolt isn't just spinning in position. And then you're going to pop all of the clips out, preferably with needle nose pliers, in order to get to the wiring harness within. You'll also notice the black bar hanging off the bottom of the headlight. I basically just popped that socket off the ball joint. You'll want to be very delicate if you plan to resell this, but I'm hanging on to it, so I just kind of did the thing. Gotta say, having small hands here really helped.
Alright. Woo! Hey.
At this point, I decided to work on the fenders as I needed a little bit more room, trying to get underneath the wheel wells. So you obviously follow those bolts along the top. There's actually going to be one or two underneath the bumper up front that we'll have to address in a moment. But there's also the worst one toward the driver's side door and passenger side door on the other side, which is an absolute nightmare to get to. I definitely recommend using some sort of lubricant, letting it sit, because unfortunately it's on a very flimsy tab. And it's really hard to get your arm in here, so just keep working with it, be patient, and just do what you can to get it loose, and definitely try not to warp that because it will only make it worse. I'm going to leave this one running in real time just to give a good sense of how annoying it was, so you guys don't feel alone out there. And also, you know, sometimes it's nice to listen to just some angsty music. So as I mentioned earlier, you're going to have to remove that front bumper in order to get to the bolts in the front of the fenders. I didn't really film this process in detail because they're all pretty visible bolts. There are some that you might get stuck on, as you can see I'm currently dealing with. But it's all manageable, it's really straightforward. You just kind of have to hunt down where you still have a connection. Oh wow, how embarrassing. My tag is out.
Woo, as long as it's not a wiring harness. Yay! I did it!
Once you've removed those front bolts and you've wrestled off the one in the rear, you're clear for liftoff.
Yes.
You guys, I can't tell you how wonderful it was having all that space up front once the bumper was removed. It was great. So much more room in front of that lawnmower. Anyway, now I'm currently working on removing the radiator. You can see me removing those bolts here that hold it in place. I have an aftermarket one, so I have brackets on the side that I needed to pull out in order to give me enough room. So once you clear those, it'll leave you with enough space to remove your radiator. It's very exciting, but you do want to be super cautious while you remove this. Those fins are super delicate, and you'll probably want to reuse your radiator for the Exocet build unless you have a really old one that's already kind of fallen apart. So just be very careful. It's a little tight in here, so be aware. But that's pretty much going to wrap it up for me over here. Thank you so much for joining. I've got 2 more that'll be coming your way soon. I'm going to get a little bit more into the technical nitty-gritty, so less of the panel removal, more of the actual body and car separation. I'm very excited, and we'll be one step closer to completing the Exocet. Thanks so much for watching.